This podcast is brought to you by Carvana. Carvana makes car selling fast and easy from start to finish. Enter your license plate or VIN and get a real offer in seconds, down to the penny. If you accept, Carvana will come pick up your car from your driveway. Or you can drop it off at one of our car vending machines. Either way, you get paid instantly. It's fast, transparent, and 100% online. Car selling that saves your time. That's Carvana.
Carvana.
Pickup fees may apply.
You don't technically need this car. You say that out loud to yourself. You say, I have no space. You say, I'm just looking. Then you click. Then you zoom in on photo number 87 and whisper, oh no. Then you text a friend, the one who always enables you. You say to yourself, this is the last one, knowing it is not. You don't need this car. But maybe, just maybe, this car needs you. Bring a trailer. It's never just a car.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Fiscally responsible, financial geniuses, monetary magicians. These are things people say about drivers who switch their car insurance to Progressive and save hundreds. Visit Progressive.com to see if you could save. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary, not available in all states or situations.
It's Saturday in Cold Blow Lane. We've all come down to cheer. We've had our jellied eels and our
A hurricane hits Coventry. Millwall's 5 goals in 11 minutes under Jack Cock's leadership. Millwall 9, Coventry City 1.
And as the Lions run on the pitch,
A hurricane period of goal scoring by the Millwall forwards immediately after the resumption, during which they obtained 5 goals in a brief space of 11 minutes, sealed the fate for good and all of Coventry City, who had opened the scoring and were level at the halfway stage at 1 goal apiece. The visitors' early form gave no indication that there would eventually be such a large margin between the two teams at the finish. That, ladies and gentlemen, the opening paragraphs of the Sunday People's report of Millwall's joint record win, 9-1 over Coventry City. That was a game played in November 1927, November the 20th. And just a couple of months earlier, we beat Torquay United by 9 goals to 1. That was in the August. So 2 9-1 wins in the space of a few months in the immense 1927-28 season, a championship winning season in the 3rd Division South, dear listeners. 127 goals were scored by Millwall, topping the table by 10 clear points, at the top of the 3rd Division South. One of the great seasons under the management of one of the great managers, Bob Hunter, who we've mentioned on this show many, many times. A 9-1 win. The team that achieved this immense was Joe Lansdale in goal, Jack Fort, Richard Hill, Alf Amos, Bert Collins, Len Graham, Jules Chance, Jack Landels, Jack Cock, Will Phillips and Alf Black. Goal scoring in the game. 4 goals for Landels. Wow. 2 goals for Cock, 2 goals for Phillips and 1 goal for Collins. Now, as I say, this was under the management of Bob Hunter, who we have mentioned a few times on these shows. And I will take the chance just to give him a shout again, because he was one of the early pioneers of the Millwall Athletic, Millwall Rovers Football Club on the Isle of Dogs. And, he was there as a trainer before the move to Cold Blow Lane, and he became, in due course after the Second World War, manager of the Lions. He was a Millwall man through and through, from Scotland, hail from Scotland. He was our longest serving manager, but there was so much more that he gave to the club as well as the management. I think he was managed from 1918 to 1933 when he died in office, but he'd been trainer with the club on the Isle of Dogs. From about 1890 onwards, I believe he was involved with the club. He was a man who came from the west coast of Scotland, and as so often in our history, we've often performed our best under Scottish managers from that part of the kind of Glaswegian hinterland, and I'm going to include our own Alex Neil now in that sentence. But Bob Hunter is one of the greats, and this was an immense season. Like I said, we won the championship, 3rd Division South Championship, and it was a team that was all-conquering. I've seen it described in Lions of the South as the all-conquering 1927-28 team. Another quote here, this is from the Midland Daily Telegraph, from Coventry paper. On Saturday's display, they say, Millwall are the most brilliant third division team which post-war football, post-First World War football they mean here, which post-war football has produced. One must offset that against the undeniable fact that a team is as good as its opponents will allow it to be. And on Saturday, the Bantams, that's Coventry's nickname of the time, the Bantams were powerless to prevent the Lions doing anything they wanted. Rout of Coventry, says the Weekly Dispatch, 20th of November, 1927. Millwall 9, Coventry City 1. Millwall sharpshooters at the very top of their form is the subheading. Seldom can it have fallen to the lot of a side to score the first goal and yet suffer defeat by such a margin as 9-1. But this was the fate of Coventry City at New Cross. From the start, the home side showed themselves to be much the cleverer lot, and only splendid work by Stanford, the Coventry City goalkeeper, prevented an even heavier score. Cock, recently transferred from Plymouth Argyle, led the Millwall forwards, and he played exceedingly well, passing with skill and discrimination and taking advantage of every opening which presented itself. Coventry had many narrow escapes before Jay Ramage gave them a lead with a free kick from 25 yards range. So they went 1-0 up, listeners. A minute from half-time, repeated efforts by Mill to get on terms met with reward. Landell's kicking through. So one each at half-time. Can you imagine that? Within a quarter of an hour of the change of ends, spectators had a series of thrills. Mill scoring 5 times. Landell's putting through the first, Jack Cock the next, whilst after Landell's had added 2 more goals, Phillips kicked another. Before the finish, 3 more goals came to Millwall through Phillips, Cock and Collins. It finished 9-1, an incredible scoreline. When you look at the players there, some of the players mentioned, top scorer for the season was Jack Landell's, with 33 goals for the season. Can you imagine that, a 33-goal striker? But team him up with someone like Will Phillips on 27 goals for the season, and you've really got, you're really pumping. But let's not forget Jack Cock with 26 goals. What a forward line, and then as you look down the numbers there, Bill Bryant on 11 goals and others spread through the side, but this was one electric forward line of the time. So I'm going to run through some of the names that I've just mentioned there. This was the joint top record win for the Lions, one of those records that you always checked out if you ever picked up a copy of the Rothmans Football Yearbook as a kid. This was like the Bible of football statistics. You always checked your own team out, and you always looked for the record win, which was 9-1 over Torquay and Coventry. So let's look at 3 of those personalities. John Landell was known as Jack, a centre forward who could dribble and had a powerful shot. He was snapped up from Grays Thurrock United, where he was a teammate of John Page, also signed by the Dockers. After being deposed by the signing of Jack Cock, he moved to inside right with brilliant results. He was the leading scorer with 33 goals in the 1927-28 Division 3 South Championship winning side, and the season later he toured South Africa with England. Jack, a former clerk and steel fixer, went into the motor trade and scouted for Arsenal in the Midlands after he gave up the game. So Jack Landell's 1925 to 1933 with the Lions, 199 games for us in that time, 77 goals, born in Gateshead in 1904, and he died in Walsall in 1986. A career taking in Thames Board Mills, Grays Athletic, Millwall, West Ham, Bristol, Carlisle, Walsall, Clapton Orient and Chelmsford. Jack Landell was, dear listeners. I don't think we might have mentioned him before. I know I've certainly mentioned names like Jack Cock and Will Phillips. I know for sure we've mentioned with the shows with Neil. But so if I'm repeating any and you've heard them before, I'm not apologising. These are the great names of our club. So I'm going to take a second name here now, George Harry Chance, outside right in this particular team. George was to many of his opponents an elusive outside right who possessed great speed and was at his best when the ground was hard. It allowed him to cut in and shoot either at goal or playing a teammate. He was ever-present in this championship-winning side in 1927-28, scoring 6 goals, and he was the London FA Challenge Cup winner 2 seasons later. His great pal at the club was Archie Gom, with whom he would go off sea fishing together. George later became a licensee and was mine host at Thorns Inn at Quarry Bank, which must be in the Midlands. I'm sure I've mentioned him before, George Chance. Now I'm saying his name and reading the little biography. These are all from Neil Fissler's great A to Z book. Listeners, do check it out. It's available on Amazon, I'm sure. George Chance, outside right, played for us 1925 to 1930. 212 games, 33 goals for the Lions. Born in Coppice-Mears, 1896. He died in Quarry Bank, 1952. A career taking Cradley Heath, Stourbridge, Brearley Hill Alliance, Bristol Rovers, Gillingham, Millwall, Brearley Hill Alliance, and that was the end of his career before he became the licensee. Boy from the Midlands, George Chance. And the final name I've picked out is Joe Lansdale, goalkeeper. I don't think we've mentioned Joe Lansdale previously. Played for us between 1919 and 1930, 283 games for Millwall in that 11-year period. He was born in Lancashire in 1894 and passed away in South Africa in 1977. Joe was to carry the mantle of being one of Millwall's greatest goalkeepers. Exceptionally fit and agile, he served with the 151st Heavy Battery Royal Field Artillery during the First World War. That's a bit different, isn't it? Players now don't know the half of it, do they, listeners? After making his... I'm not sure I know the half of it either, incidentally. After making his debut in Mill's last Southern League campaign, he appeared in their first ever Football League fixture. Joe also appeared for the South versus the North England trial game in 1923 and made one appearance for the Southern League. He was a former chemical works labourer who became a credit draper collector before emigrating to South Africa, where he worked on a vineyard in South Africa. Joe Lansdale did his career coming in with Little Lever Lads, Little Lever Congregational Church, Norwich City, Mill Athletic, Accrington Stanley, and then Folkestone to finish his career. These are the names that are part of the greatest Mill team, I would argue possibly ever, in terms of statistics, certainly. 127 goals scored, just 50 conceded. I suppose still goal a game, isn't it? But they were scoring at the rate of, 2 or 3 a game. 65 points. Mill would win the 3rd Division South and 10 points clear of Northampton and will be promoted to Division 2. A record win for the Lions, and let's hope for something equivalent on tonight's game. Ahead of the Millwall versus Coventry game. Wouldn't it be wonderful if we could? So there we are. Short and sharp preview show. Hope you've enjoyed this little look back at one of our record wins. A hurricane hits Coventry. Millwall 9, Coventry City 0. From me, Nick Hart, enjoy tonight's match. Let's hope for a win. Arrivederci Millwall. Bye for now.
Come rain or shine, our families will bring.
Who do you want to watch?
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.